Millions of years ago, long before humans appeared, the world was ruled by creatures beyond imagination. But their story was hidden beneath stone and earth for ages, waiting to be discovered. In the early 1800s, people began finding strange fossils in Europe. Huge bones, giant claws, and teeth shaped like knives. Nobody understood what they were. Some thought they were remains of dragons or ancient giants from myths. But one man, a country doctor named Gideon Mantell, would change that forever. While exploring the countryside in England, Mantell stumbled upon a collection of large fossilized teeth embedded in rock. They were smooth, with a pattern almost identical to modern iguana teeth, yet many times larger. He realized this belonged to a creature far greater than anything living today. After years of study, he named it Iguanodon, meaning iguana tooth. It was one of the very first dinosaurs ever identified, even before scientists created the word dinosaur. At first, no one could imagine what such a creature looked like. Some scientists believed it crawled like a giant lizard. Others thought it resembled a rhinoceros, walking heavily on four legs. Museums even displayed early models that looked completely wrong, animals dragging their tails like reptiles. But as time went on and more fossils appeared, a clearer image began to form. Iguanodon wasn't slow or clumsy. It was built to survive. This herbivore lived during the early Cretaceous period, about 125 million years ago. It traveled in large herds across open plains, feeding on ferns, cycads, and tall plants. Its body could reach 10 meters in length, with powerful back legs that allowed it to walk upright when needed. Its tail was long and muscular, helping it balance as it reared up to grab leaves from trees. Unlike predators, Iguanodon didn't rely on claws or teeth for defense. Instead, it had something unique, a sharp conical thumb spike that could pierce the skin of any attacker. Scientists believe it used that spike to defend its young or to break open tough plants. But what makes Iguanodon's story so important isn't just its biology. It's what it revealed to humanity. Before this discovery, the idea that giant prehistoric creatures once ruled the earth seemed impossible. Mantell's fossil changed that. It was proof that our planet had once belonged to massive beings that vanished long before us. It was the beginning of a revolution in science, a moment that forced people to see time itself differently. The discovery of Iguanodon opened the door to a lost world. It connected humans to a deep history we had never imagined. It showed that life on Earth had not always looked the way it does today, and that everything, even the mightiest of creatures, can one day disappear. From that single fossil, the story of dinosaurs began to take shape, and the name Iguanodon became a symbol of discovery and curiosity. About 125 million years ago, Earth looked very different. The world of the Iguanodon was warm and green, filled with giant plants and endless plains. There were no flowers yet, no grass like we know today, only ferns, cycads, and conifer trees that towered over the landscape. Rivers ran through wide valleys and the air was thick with moisture. Volcanoes erupted far in the distance, feeding the ground with minerals that helped plants grow even taller. It was a world full of life, but also danger. Iguanodon lived in herds. Moving together gave them protection and strength. The young stayed near the middle of the group, while adults surrounded them, always alert for danger. Traveling across open plains, they used their keen senses to detect movement in the tall plants. Their eyes were sharp and placed on the sides of their heads, giving them a wide field of view to spot predators like baryonyx or neovenator hiding in the distance. Each morning, the herd would begin to move. The ground shook slightly under their heavy steps, tails swaying to keep balance. They fed as they walked, pulling down leaves with their strong hands and grinding them with their beak-shaped mouths. Though they were herbivores, they were far from helpless. When threatened, an iguanodon could rear up on its hind legs, its body towering over 3 meters high, using its thumb spike as a weapon. A single swing could leave a deep wound on any predator foolish enough to attack. Despite the dangers, life in the Cretaceous world followed a rhythm: feeding, migrating, protecting, surviving. The herds moved with the seasons, searching for fresh vegetation and safe nesting grounds. When heavy storms came, they gathered together, forming circles around their young. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder rolled across the plains. But when the storms passed, the air smelled of wet earth and new life. Ferns sprouted again, and the herd continued on, just as they had for generations. Around them the world was alive with sound, the calls of flying reptiles above, the rustle of insects, the distant cry of carnivores. Giant dragonflies hovered near rivers. Early birds, still with teeth in their beaks, fluttered between trees. It was a time when life was still experimenting, constantly evolving into new forms. And in that vast, untamed land, Iguanodon thrived. They weren't the largest or the fiercest creatures of their age, but they were survivors. Steady, adaptable, and intelligent for their kind. Their herds may have stretched across continents, migrating through lands that would one day become Europe and Asia. They lived in harmony with their world, shaping the ecosystem simply by existing. For millions of years, the Iguanodon's world remained lush and full of balance. But nature never stays the same forever. And already, far away, the Earth was preparing for its next great change. The Iguanodon was a masterpiece of nature's engineering. It was built for balance, strength, and survival. Unlike some dinosaurs that were slow or clumsy, the Iguanodon could move both on two legs and on all fours, switching easily between walking and running. This made it one of the most adaptable creatures of its time. When it was calm, it walked on all fours, using its front limbs to help it move steadily through forests and plains. But when danger came, it could rise up on its strong back legs, ready to run or fight. Its body was large but not heavy. The long tail acted like a counterweight, keeping it steady when it moved quickly. Its skin was thick and covered with scales that protected it from scratches and bites. The most famous part of its body was the spike on its thumb, sharp, strong, and deadly if used in defense. Scientists believe that Iguanodon could stab or slash with this spike, warning predators to stay away. It was nature's version of a hidden blade. The head of the Iguanodon was shaped for efficiency. Its mouth worked like a pair of scissors, clipping and grinding leaves with precision. Behind its beak, rows of teeth chewed plants into a soft pulp. Unlike most reptiles, Iguanodon didn't just swallow food whole. It processed it carefully, helping it digest large amounts of vegetation. This allowed it to survive even when food was scarce. But strength and teeth were not its only advantages. The Iguanodon was intelligent for its time. Its brain was larger than many other dinosaurs of similar size, giving it a strong sense of awareness and coordination. It could recognize patterns, follow herd leaders, and even communicate through body movement and low sounds. Survival was not only about power, it was about strategy. And Iguanodon had both. Its hands were one of the most fascinating parts of its body. The thumb was a spike, but the other fingers were flexible and capable of gripping branches or pulling leaves. The little finger was opposable, like a primitive version of a human thumb. This gave Iguanodon control over its food and surroundings that few dinosaurs had. Some scientists believe this ability to handle objects was a key reason it thrived for millions of years. Iguanodon's legs were strong and muscular, with three-toed feet that could carry its massive body long distances. It wasn't built for short bursts like a predator, but for endurance, traveling miles each day in search of food. When running, it could reach up to 24 kilometers per hour, fast enough to escape most threats. And if it couldn't escape, it would stand its ground, using its tail and spike like weapons in a prehistoric duel for survival. The anatomy of Iguanodon was proof that evolution doesn't just create the biggest or the strongest. It creates what lasts. Every bone, every muscle, every adaptation served one purpose: to keep it alive in a dangerous and changing world. Life for the Iguanodon was not about being alone. It was about the herd. These dinosaurs lived and moved together, forming tight groups that worked almost like families. Living in herds gave them a huge advantage in a world filled with predators. When one iguanodon sensed danger, the whole herd reacted within seconds. Together, they were not just a group of animals. They were a moving fortress of strength and awareness. Each herd had its own rhythm. The morning started early when the air was still cool, and the low mist covered the plains. Adults began to move first, stretching their necks to scan the horizon, while the younger ones followed close behind. They traveled slowly, stopping to feed on the tall plants and tree branches. The sound of chewing, rustling leaves, and low grunts filled the air. It was the sound of safety, a herd working as one. Inside the herd, every member had a role. The strongest adults stayed on the edges, watching for predators like baryonyx or neovenator that might try to attack. The smaller, younger iguanodons stayed in the middle, protected from danger. Sometimes older individuals guided the group, knowing the best paths to rivers or fresh vegetation. Their memories helped the herd survive the dry seasons and find new feeding grounds when the old ones were gone. When danger came, the herd's behavior changed instantly. A sudden movement or strange sound could cause them to freeze. Heads lifted, eyes focused, tails stiffened. If the threat was near, the adults formed a defensive wall. They would rear up slightly, showing their size, and aim their sharp thumb spikes forward. It was a warning to any predator: come closer, and you'll regret it. Usually, that was enough. Predators preferred easier targets than a united wall of horned giants. But life wasn't always about defense. The herd also had moments of peace and connection. Young iguanodons played by nudging each other or running in small circles, learning how to use their legs and balance. Mothers cared for their offspring gently, using low calls that only their young could recognize. The bond between them was strong. If a baby became separated, adults would circle back to find it, calling in deep rhythmic sounds that echoed across the land. As the day went on, the herd often stopped near rivers or lakes. There, they could rest and drink while staying alert. The air was full of insects, and the water reflected the massive shapes of the dinosaurs standing side by side. When night came, they gathered close together for warmth and safety, their large bodies forming a shield against the cold and predators lurking in the dark. The stars shone above them, just like they do today, though the world below was wild and untamed. The herd was more than a group of animals. It was a living system of cooperation and care. Together, they survived storms, droughts, and attacks. Alone, one iguanodon might fall. But in the herd, they thrived. It was this unity that made them one of the longest-lasting and most successful dinosaurs of their age. Every year, as the seasons changed, the world of the iguanodon transformed. The lush plains that once offered endless food began to dry under the burning sun. Rivers shrank into muddy streams. Trees lost their leaves, and the green paradise turned into a harsh, dusty land. For the iguanodon, survival meant movement, and that movement became one of nature's greatest spectacles: the migration. The herd began its journey slowly. At first, only a few steps, testing the direction of the wind, the smell of the air, and the position of the sun. The oldest members seemed to know the path, an ancient route passed down through generations. When they began to move, the rest followed without hesitation. The sound of hundreds of footsteps echoed across the plain, a deep, steady rhythm like the heartbeat of the earth. The journey was long and dangerous. Every day, the herd walked for miles, searching for water and fresh vegetation. Dust covered their legs and the sun burned overhead. The young grew tired quickly, but they were never left behind. Adults slowed their pace, forming protective circles around them. Their unity was their strength. The smallest members of the herd survived because the others never gave up on them. Sometimes they crossed wide rivers, the current strong and unpredictable. The older iguanodons entered first, using their size to break the water's flow. The smaller ones followed behind, guided by the herd's low calls. When they reached the other side, they shook off the water and continued walking, leaving deep footprints that would last for millions of years. But not every challenge came from nature. Predators followed the herd, waiting for weakness. Packs of carnivorous dinosaurs like baryonyx or small raptors stalked from a distance. When one tried to attack, the herd reacted instantly. Adults roared and swung their tails, forming a wall of defense. The sound of their heavy steps and deep calls was enough to send most hunters fleeing. The herd didn't fight for power. They fought for each other. As they traveled, the landscape around them changed. They passed through open plains, dense forests, and rocky canyons. The air shifted from dry heat to heavy humidity, carrying the smell of rain. Some days storms broke above them, thunder shaking the ground, lightning flashing across the sky. The herd kept moving through wind and rain, their massive bodies glistening under flashes of light. They had done this for centuries. They would do it again. When the rains finally came, the world transformed once more. The brown, dry land turned green again. Rivers filled with water. New plants grew, and the air became cooler. The herd slowed down, their long journey complete. The young ran and played in the fresh grass while the adults grazed peacefully. They had survived another season of struggle, proof of the strength that comes from unity. The Great Migration wasn't just a journey. It was a cycle of life, a rhythm older than time. The Iguanodon's march across continents was nature's way of reminding the world that survival isn't about domination. It's about persistence, memory, and the will to move forward, no matter the cost. Millions of years have passed since the Iguanodon walked the earth. The rivers that once carried their reflections have dried or changed course. The forests they lived in have turned to stone, and the world they knew has vanished. But their story, the story of survival, balance, and intelligence, still remains written in the rocks beneath our feet. When scientists first found the bones of Iguanodon, they didn't fully understand what they were looking at. The fossils seemed strange, part reptile, part giant, something that didn't fit into the world as they knew it. But as more discoveries were made, piece by piece the image of Iguanodon came to life. It wasn't a monster, as early drawings showed, but a complex, graceful creature, one that lived in harmony with its world. It became one of the first dinosaurs to truly change how humans thought about life on Earth. The Iguanodon taught us that power isn't only in teeth or claws. It's in adaptability, in cooperation, in the ability to live through change. It survived across continents, through floods, droughts, and shifting climates. Its bones remind us that nature's greatest strength isn't destruction, it's endurance. Every fossil tells a story of patience and resilience, of creatures that found their way long before humans existed. In museums today, people look at the skeleton of Iguanodon and feel something familiar. Its posture, its limbs, even its eyes, they all tell a story of a creature that wasn't so different from us in its instincts. It cared for its young, lived in groups, and found safety in unity. Maybe that's why the Iguanodon still fascinates us. It represents the part of evolution that values cooperation over chaos. Paleontologists have discovered Iguanodon fossils all over Europe, Africa, and Asia. Each discovery adds another detail to the picture, a new clue about how they lived, moved, and survived. From those ancient bones, scientists can recreate a world long gone, a world that still shapes our understanding of life today. If the Iguanodon could speak, it might tell us this: survival isn't about being the strongest or fastest. It's about adapting, learning, and standing together. Its herds survived for millions of years because they understood what many species never did: that strength comes from unity, not isolation. The legacy of the Iguanodon lives on in every discovery, in every fossil, and in every child who looks up at its bones and imagines what it was like to walk beside giants. The Earth has changed, but the lesson remains the same. Life always finds a way, and as long as we keep uncovering their stories, the Iguanodon, and all the creatures of its time, will never truly disappear.